All right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, America is hurting right now. We just got word that the number of unemployment claims filed across America last week topped 6.6 million, a record-setting high and the second to the number of coronavirus cases that we have. It's the most important number that we should focus on. We witness the raw force with which this virus tears through the country, but increasingly our elites ignore the very real pain and suffering for millions across America who were unable to make rent yesterday, who thought that they maybe had it made until this plague came along, who were working towards something or finally getting themselves out of something, or are already down and are just taking another punch to the gut. The New York Times recently stopped by a food bank in the suburbs of Dallas, Texas. 70% of the people in line had never been there before. David Greenfield, he was the head of a nonprofit that focuses on housing and food assistance in New York City. He told the Times at first, quote, "We saw retail workers, chefs, waiters, and restaurant owners, but that as the week went on, he began to see people who worked at law firms and those who had been employed their entire lives." You've heard a lot about the beefed up unemployment program that's been passed by Congress, but you know what you have to do before you can get it? You literally have to be able to file for unemployment. The number that we just learned of may actually be too low because the systems right now are so inundated with requests and calls that websites are crashing. One woman told Politico she had to call the office 800, yes, 800 times before she was able to file her unemployment claim. This is an unprecedented crisis facing tens of millions who need our assistance now. And if we're to avoid a literal revolution in America, but what does Washington want to do? You already know. The answer is to continue helping the rich. Nancy Pelosi told the New York Times 2 days ago her stimulus idea is to repeal the state and local taxes deduction cap. And as we pointed out on this show, guess who literally only benefits from that? You guessed it, people who make over $1 million in this country and who live in places like New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. Don't worry, she's not the only one. Senate Republicans aren't exactly chomping at the bit in order to provide more relief. They haven't even put forward a wish list, and pretty much nobody is doing the job that they were sent to Washington to do, which is to help American workers and small businesses. Instead, they passed a multi-trillion-dollar giveaway to the richest corporations in America and skipped town for 3.5 weeks. And they both seem to agree they may not even come to work. Now, of course, you're thinking, well, they might just be smart and institute smart remote voting for the House and the Senate. No. Both Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell have ruled that out. And for the time being, meaning that if the disease outbreak is at its height, the very people tasked with passing laws to deal with this fallout may not be able to even show up for work. The unemployment numbers are a shot in the gut to the nation, and our leadership has no intention of saving us. Those food banks are going to run dry soon as they rely on donations from grocery stores and businesses which don't exactly have very much to give right now. And I'll keep saying it here until I'm blue in the face, but they are guaranteeing a political revolution. And the only question right now is which side is going to seize that moment. Because, Crystal, we just got the numbers. I mean, both of us were kind of aghast. I mean, 6.6 million people. That's 10 million in 2 weeks. Life was fine a month ago. Now, 10 million people are on the unemployment rolls. And just to put this in perspective, in 2 weeks, more Americans lost their jobs than it took 6 months in the Great Recession. And the Fed is predicting 30% unemployment, possibly more than 30% unemployment. That's higher than it was at the height of the Great Depression, 4 years of Great Depression in the 1930s. And what is Washington doing? They're sitting at home. Some of them may not even show up to work. They're telling each other, oh, when the height of the virus and all this stuff is going on, we may not be able to come here. It's unconscionable. Mitch McConnell said yesterday he's not going to, we may not be looking at a phase 4. Nancy Pelosi wants to do a salt cap reduction or salt cap tax deduction.
Right.
It's like nobody is 2.2 trillion is nothing compared to this. And most of that trillion is not going to the very people who need it. I mean, think about this. The small business fund was $394 billion. Just $394 billion, which the Fed that's going to run out in a month in terms of what people need.
Right. Compare that to the $4 trillion for big business.
This isn't leverage.
You can see what their priorities
are. The small business one's not leveraged like the way it is with the $1 trillion fund, the $500 billion fund that the Fed through financial magic is able to stretch. That benefit, financial magicians don't get to work for the benefit of us.
Right.
They don't get to work for the benefit of restaurants. Oh no, that's not what happens. And again, McConnell is saying no. I'm putting a hard break on phase 4. I'm going to be watching what Pelosi is doing. Pelosi's saying, oh, let's throw in, the SALT reduction in order for stimulus. This is a time where all those people need a check, and they need it now. And they need the certainty that it's going to be coming every single month until this BS is over. That's it. Give everybody some sort of peace of mind.
Right.
And at the same time, you have these landlords, who some of these people are the most despicable people in this entire country, who are telling small businesses, these are all corporate-owned landlords and all this, who are saying, oh, you have to fire everybody and pay me your rent. And at a certain level, I get it, because they got to kick up their debt and over to Wall Street. But the government needs to step in here, because we're going to see full-blown financial collapse.
I'm honestly, I'm stunned.
Yeah.
First of all, I think the people who need to be on the unemployment rolls are the ones who are running this town.
Yeah, right.
That's the first thing to work on once we have a chance to make those voices heard at the ballot box. But second of all, I'm frankly stunned that there is no debt forbearance whatsoever. There's no rent freeze. There's no mortgage freeze.
From HUD there is, but not nationally.
Right.
And again, how do you even institute that? I don't even know. Somebody has to pick up the tab.
And it's insane to think that they would think that a $1,200 payment, which won't even come for weeks, if not months, is going to be sufficient to deal with this. And meanwhile, 10 million people in 2 weeks. And as you rightly point out, that's probably undercounting.
It is.
Because how many people weren't able to get through? Because the systems are crashing, because we've never seen anything like this before. And look, yes, there was no way to escape this and get through coronavirus and the social distancing and the shutdown, all of that without pain. Every country in the world is going through pain. But because, number one, our working class and our lower income people were already so stretched, already we had so little in the way of social safety net. Already we have such a patchwork in terms of health insurance. And by the way, these millions of people who are filing for unemployment are also losing their health insurance in the middle of a pandemic, something that Washington has done nothing about also before they skip town. So not only are people pushed up against the wall, not only do we have a threadbare, practically non-existent social safety net, but then the approach that they've taken has increase the number of people who are being separated from their jobs, which is not only creating additional pain now, but means when we do get beyond this virus and people do start to come back out, it's going to take a lot longer to ramp back up, because people can't just go back to the jobs that they already had. You're going to have this massive shuffling and realignment within the economy, which is already painful and is going to be even more so before we can even begin to get back to normal. Yeah. This is one of the things that we covered yesterday, Saagar. The New York Times had an article about how people need to prepare themselves for the fact that this isn't going to be you can flip a switch and go back. That's not inevitable, but because of the way that Washington structured this bailout, even the little bit of support that they gave was for people to be on unemployment rather than to try to keep them in the jobs that they have and back up those payrolls. I think that is a devastating mistake. And the rationalization was that, well, we already have the unemployment system, but the unemployment system is crashing. It's not like it's working so well anyway.
And it's all state by state.
And you put all the burden on the worker rather than on business, right? That's what this is all about. Matt Stiller had that great tweet where he showed where for big companies applying for bailout money, the form and the process is like a snap.
Yeah, it's a page, like 2 pages.
For individual humans applying for unemployment, it's like
SNAP benefits.
For SNAP, it's page after page after page of complicated justifying your poverty, the federal government begging for aid. Tells you everything.
Of course it does. And I'm just thinking about what this means. I mean, we need $2.2 trillion just for the small business payroll, right? The Fed, we basically need to restructure the Fed so that Congress doesn't even need to get involved and they can dole cash as soon as humanly possible. I mean, and Congress they're not even here. They're not coming back for 3.5 weeks. What are the jobless claims going to look like in this country 3 weeks from now? We could have 20 million on the unemployment rolls at that point. What does that country even look like? That's the thing, is Washington is operating at the same old snail's pace, fighting over SALT cap deductions, when we need to be talking not about billions, but trillions being pumped into our economy because we have to keep people safe, and we need to get the economy working again. And just a special message to some people on the right who are always talking about how, oh, well, this just shows we need to reopen the economy again. Just saw an interesting article from The Economist, which studied that the only way that business came back after the Spanish flu is after infections went down. Regardless of whether people had quarantining or whatever, business activity only picked up after the flu was gone. So there you go. There's only one goal we have in this country: destroy the virus as soon as humanly possible. That's what all of our energy needs to be focused on so we can get these people back to work. And in the meantime, here's the problem. I say I hope that, but I know they're not going to do it.
I know.
I just know they're not going to do it. Well, and we laid it out. I mean, the political conditions are not there. These multimillionaires in Congress don't feel any of what some of the stories that we are hearing.
Right.
From people who are losing their jobs.
They're out quarantining on their yachts.
They're unemployed.
Literally.
People are quarantining on yachts. People are quarantining on vineyards. Some people are having the time of their lives. I saw a New York Times article yesterday of a culture writer saying, hey, guys, just take the self-care time that you need. You know, I mean, this is the vapidity. This is the vapidity of the existence that these people live in, while 70% of people at a food bank had never been there before in their entire lives.
And think about the shameful way in which this bailout was passed. First of all, holding workers and small businesses hostage to the big business bailout. That's number one, which everybody bought in on. Everybody bought in. I didn't see any pushback on that, hardly at all, barely at the margins. A few AOC tweets, few maybe Josh Hawley, I don't know if he objected to that or not, Bernie Sanders, but overall everybody was bought in with, yes, let's hold the workers hostage to get the big business bailout passed. Then the House, for everybody in the Senate votes for it, everybody. Then the House doesn't even have people record a vote. It's just a voice vote. So you don't even go on the record of whether you stood for or against this, and then they pass it with very little debate, with some CYA of, oh, sure, we're going to have oversight, which the president has already basically shot down and say, well, that's cute, but we'll have the oversight that I want us to have. So they pass this thing, and then they all skip town. And Democrats were dumb enough to believe that Mitch McConnell and co. were going to come back to pass another bailout, which they never had any intention of. And then Democrats, all that they can offer is tax cuts for wealthy people. I mean, it's a complete farce. You couldn't make it up. You could not make it up.
You really can't. And 10 million people unemployed in 2 weeks. It's like just processing that here live. You can't process it. That's why I said it. This is human suffering on a staggering level that nobody here gets, and they're going to find out real soon.
Indeed. All right, we're going to have more for you after this.